Hello. Thank you all for being here. I'm seeing right now it's about 1 o'clock. I believe there is some technical difficulty on the end of the Ashby Village people, but my name is Melinda McCrary. I'm the executive director of the Richmond Museum of History and Culture, and I am delighted today to provide a virtual tour of the Richmond Museum of History and Culture on behalf of Ashby Village and my friend Julie Freestone. So thank you, Julie, for having me. I really appreciate it. And while we get started, I just want to really briefly introduce you, if it's okay, to the museum website. So you can learn a little bit more about us after the tour. And you'll find that we are right here at the richmondmuseum.org. The museum is located at 400 Nevin Avenue, right by Kaiser in Richmond. Thank you, Crystal. And Julie, can I do you a favor? Can I ask a favor of you?
Sure.
Can I assign you as a co-host? And that way you can answer some of the chats for me, because I was hoping that Eric would be able to do that. But
I think Eric's having some technical difficulties. So
no worries, no worries. And also, this is my first actual tour where I'm going to be getting up and moving around. And so I thought I was going to be able to do this on my phone, but I'm not really getting a good Zoom picture on my phone. So I'm going to do it with my laptop. Okay. So we'll sort it out though. Okay, so I'm gonna make you the co-host. Yes. Okay. Okay, so I am going to pick up my computer and we are gonna go downstairs and we're gonna start in the Rose Garden. I have my keys and I'm good. I don't actually need this anymore. Okay, so I'm moving through the museum. So while can everybody hear me okay? Let me get a thumbs up for those of you who can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you. So while I am moving downstairs, I would like to tell you a little bit about our organization. The Richmond Museum of History and Culture was founded in 1954. And we are one of the oldest organizations dedicated to local history in West County. And we have quite a large rose garden, which we are also working to put in some native plants. And so I'm going to show you this. So there's our beautiful building.
We can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Has...
Oh, you know what? I'm going to show you the roses, but then I'm going to go right back inside.
Okay, so it looks like Melinda is having some problems with her reception. So this is Julie Freestone, and I'm a board member at Ashby Village, and we have Melinda back again, I think. So this is a work in progress, this tour. So everybody hang in there. We now have 12 participants, so we're going to be given a lovely tour of the museum, and I don't know whether we're going to be able to see the rose garden because it looked like we didn't have any Wi-Fi reception, but we'll work on that. So Melinda, back to you.
I'm here. Okay, I deeply apologize. I should have anticipated that problem, but I didn't. Okay, so a little bit about our organization. We normally are open Wednesday through Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. Okay, we have a permanent exhibit that covers the Alone period all the way up to about World War II. We also have a temporary exhibit gallery that allows us to put in special shows, short-term temporary exhibits. Currently, our exhibition is about Laotian refugees. So here's our exhibition. This exhibition, this room right here in our Lao exhibition is what it looks like in a traditional, well, let me rephrase that, contemporary Lao American living room. So here you go. This exhibit is a collaboration with the Center for Laos Studies in South City. This is an example of a Laotian spirit house. Okay. And additionally on display here, we have a palm leaf manuscript, a traditional palm leaf manuscript that's written on tree bark, and it's on loan from a university. Okay, and I'm coming upstairs now where my internet connection's a little bit better. One second, let me just close my door. You're like, hi, Lynn. Oh, my friend is here. Okay, so the Richmond Museum, Richmond, California has a lot of wonderful history, including Ohlone materials. The first people of Richmond were the Ohlone Indians. And as you can see, we have some lovely baskets on display here. We also have some larger baskets. I apologize for the glare there, right? We are working to renovate this portion of the exhibit so that we can be more relevant. And also we could tell the story of the Native people who are living today. Here's an example of what we hope our exhibit will look like at some point. Okay. Excuse me. So we begin with the Ohlone people. We also have a few items from the Spanish-Mexican period. So we have, here's an adobe brick. You probably can't see it all that well, but we also have materials. Here's a fan. Here are some pictures. This here is Henry Alvarado's desk chair. Henry Alvarado is one of the sons of the Governor Alvarado, who was from San Pablo. So we also have a lot of photographs. This house is still standing here in Richmond, and it's actually not far from the museum. Some of the programs we have at the Richmond Museum are in-person field trips. We also have as I said, special exhibits. We have family free days where we have activities. Like, for example, we had planned a Mother's Day activity for this weekend. That was a family free day that was an ice cream social. We have lots of materials here on old, what it was like to attend school in the past. And I'm coming here to my case. So here's some other materials. We also talk a lot about, or excuse me, interpret the history of industrial Richmond. And of course, we had so much industry on the Bayfront, from Ford, the Ford assembly plant. We also had the shipyards. We had places like California Wine Association that made wine. We had American Standard that built toilets and bathtubs. And of course, we're also very agricultural on the interior of Richmond. Few people recognize that Richmond actually has 32 miles of shoreline, which is the most in the Bay Area. So we're quite lucky to have all of that shoreline. And let me see a thumbs up if you guys can hear me. Okay, thank you. Thank you, folks. Okay, so one of my deep interests as well is the Chinese shrimping camps at Point Malati. So there's some information here about our shrimping camps. Here's an image of Ellis Landing, right? This is what the shrimping camp at Point Malati looked like, one of the few images we have. Here's our lovely sample water cooler, right? So that we could show the children about our toilets. We also have quite a few pieces of agricultural material. These belong to a gentleman named Asro Rumrill. Asro Rumrill is known, or is best known because there's quite a popular boulevard named after him here, Rumrill Boulevard. And this buggy that we have here is quite extraordinary, right? Because it's quite beautiful. It was a peddler's wagon, and quite lovely. We also have an image of the family, the Brazzone family, using this same wagon. And the wagon is wonderful because it has some peddler's licenses from Richmond as well. So those are the old license plates. Okay. So Richmond is best known for our time in the shipyards for World War II. And the World War II home front was an integral time of change in Richmond. And we have a small, we have a corner of our exhibit dedicated to the shipyards as well. I could spend many time talking about the impact of the shipyards on Richmond, but I would love to introduce you to one of our lesser known collections related to the shipyards, something that's very close to my heart because I'm now a homeschooling mom. Against my will, no, just kidding, but is the children's art collection. So somebody had to watch Rosie the Riveter's children when she went to work in the shipyards. And Richmond was actually the site of federally funded childcare centers during the war from 1943 to the 1960s. It was quite affordable, and it was something like $2.50 to send your child to school, to daycare. And one of the teachers at these daycare centers was named Monica Haley. And Monica was quite wonderful, and I'm going to show you an image of her. Monica was an artist. Her husband was an artist as well. Here she is in her lovely smock. Here she is. I apologize. Here she is in her lovely smock. Okay. And Monica taught art, and she saved these children's arts. Okay. And these children made some amazing imagery of the things that were going on in their world. And as you can see here, this is one of the best ones. I'm sorry for the glare, but this is a image of an airplane, and you can see yourself reflected in there, of an airplane bombing a Nazi ship. And you can see the swastikas there on the ship. And when you come in person, as I do hope you will, you'll be able to read that this wonderful child named Jimmy Chapman on July 14th, 1945, wrote on this in paint to Hitler. So it's quite, I still get goosebumps still to this day. And so here's some imagery about Monica Haley. Here, the Shipyard magazine, the Shipyard magazine called The Fore and Aft covered these maritime childcare centers. But what's so extraordinary is that we have about 5,000 pieces of children's art related to these childcare centers. And it's a really, really great collection of materials. And it's one of those really amazing collections that is, you know, there's a few pieces of it on display, but in fact, there are many, many more downstairs in our archives. I'd love to show. So here's a couple more pieces. So this is quite beautiful. It says, "War is over, happy home." You can see it a little bit better. "War is over, happy home." And then again, this is a collage piece that is another ship being bombed. We have, in addition to the art, we also have many of the easels and materials that go along with these federally funded childcare centers. And that childcare center today, and this is one of those, another beautiful thing about Richmond, still is a school. It's the home of, it's been renovated. It was once known as the Maritime Childcare Center. It has been renovated. It's now owned by the Rosie the Riveter Trust, and it is occupied by one of our charter schools. And Richmond Community Foundation have their offices in there as well. And so it's quite wonderful to, you know, that's just one example of the continuity of history in Richmond, and, you know, using our history to our advantage in contemporary times as well. And so we have all kinds of other wonderful things related to the shipyards. We have materials about the 4-day ship. So we built a ship in 4 days. We have several, these are pieces of ordnance, right? Not live, of course, but that's what our ships did. You know, we built 747 ships in Richmond, and they were actually fighting ships, they were cargo ships that brought ammunition, mail, food, etc., back and forth to those fighting ships. I'm moving around because I'm getting a notice that my internet connection is unstable. Here's some of these launching programs from the shipyard. And again, we have, here's a phone. The interior of the museum is quite beautiful. This is a Carnegie Library building, and we are very lucky to continue to have our Carnegie Library and have it be a public building. So we also have an ongoing theme of transportation in our museum. We have several vehicles. So I've already shared with you the wagon, and I shared with you also our ships. I would also like to share with you a few additional vehicles, one of which is our Richmond Volunteer Fire Department wagon. And this is quite fun. So this is a horse-drawn wagon from the 1st Richmond Volunteer Fire Department. And if I'm gonna zoom in, you can see here that it still has its lettering that says Richmond Volunteer Fire Department #1. And I'm gonna peek you inside because the hose is still in there. So that's something that's quite fun and so we use this theme as transportation to teach school kids. And actually, Richmond has a really interesting space in relation to transportation because we have, as I said, all this available shoreline, but we also have the railroad. There are the Amtraks here, and then we are on a spur of the Transcontinental Railroad. And so it's a great place for the movement of goods, right? We currently, right now, our shoreline operates as basically a landing dock for Subarus, right? And they come here, they get unloaded at Auto Warehouse, and then they get sent off to the rest of the West. So Richmond has this really interesting spot as a hub for the movement of goods, which is why the shipyards were here. Okay, another very interesting aspect, and I'd love to bring this in to today, is our Way Pavilion. So the Way Pavilion today, how is the Way important to our COVID response? Anyone? What's the Way Pavilion doing right now? Yeah, Julie.
It's set up as a hospital surge overflow area, and it actually is off limits to everybody, but it's sitting there waiting in case the hospitals get overwhelmed in Contra Costa County.
Isn't that wonderful? Thank you so much, Julie. And that is correct. And the Way Pavilion today is an event space, but we are so lucky to have the first Ford that was built at the Way as the marquee or the highlight of our collection. And this is just the most beautiful object. We have it open so that everybody can look inside the engine. Okay, there's a beautiful story behind this as well. You don't want to look at me, you want to look at the car. But the story of the car is Ford gave it to the city as a goodwill gift. It was driven by the city manager for many years until technology became outdated. And the city sold it to the museum for $1. And we were so lucky because at that time, Ford was in Milpitas, and they actually restored it for us. So it's in mint condition, and I even have the keys and we bought it for $1. So that is a pretty cool, amazing thing that we have. And it's great because in the 70s, they they took off the door frame to get it inside. So this door frame right here, they literally took that apart and brought the car inside backwards. Right. So here's our beautiful Ford right here. And this is our Ford is such a powerful educational tool because everybody has driven in a car, and it's such a great way to show how technology changes, right? So I'll get all the kids together in front of it and I'll say, where do you put the baby seat in this car? And of course there's no seat belts, no nothing. So it's a great way to kind of get them thinking about how do things change. So we also have a gravity gravity force gas pump, so our young ones can pump that up. Of course, Chevron gas, our Standard Oil, right? And here is the other side of our car. And the Ford has a lovely inside as well, so it's quite beautiful. It is completely restored and gorgeous. And then we also have some imagery of the men and some women, actually, who built these cars. So Ford was here from 1931 to 1955. And so we also have a little space here. So we actually hosted a graduation before the shelter in place. We hosted a graduation here. So we have this little corner area where we have events. We also, you could see here, I'd love to show you, we are doing some research on the Spanish flu. And so here's our newspapers. We have a beautiful collection of newspapers, and this is from 1919. And I'm seeing here that this is a beautiful ad for Mothers of America, Richmond abstract and title. So one final thing that I want to show you, one of the most popular objects in our gallery is actually something that was used by the staff, but it is this typewriter and rotary phone. And you'll see that there's a lovely sign on there that says, don't touch germs, germy people, because, you know, we were doing our bit, but so many, or let me rephrase that, so few children have ever touched a typewriter or a rotary phone that they line up to play with and experience these old technologies. Another thing that's wonderful is the way that these objects connect the past and the present. For example, so many grandmas at the graduation that I talked to you about were here with their little grandkids, and she would say, oh, I used to type on that. And it's a really wonderful object to connect the past and the present. And it's a great story too, because I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, because it was actually used by the staff here at the museum. The museum is, literally has been here since the 1950s, right? And this was a staff object, right? This was used by the staff. And so we just brought it up and now are letting the kids use it. And we were even told, like, it's a workhorse. They're never going to be able to hurt it because it's a tank. But yeah, so, and here we have our sign that says, like, please touch our desk. It's great. It's a wonderful object, and the comments that come out of the kids' mouths about all of the different aspects of, how long did it take to make a phone call on a rotary phone? It's just wonderful. We even have carbon paper. I got some carbon paper to put out for field trips to show them, like, how did you make a copy in the day, et cetera, et cetera. So we're really trying to make it more interactive. Okay.
So Melinda, we do have a question coming in on the chat.
Thank you.
Melinda?
I hear you.
Okay. Hey, so Karen has a question. She wants to know if you have a Tepco pottery collection or artifacts from the whaling station. And I didn't even know there was a whaling station here.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen. Those are wonderful, wonderful questions. Thank you. And in fact, we do. So first, let me give you some context. The Richmond whaling station was in existence until 1979 when whaling was outlawed internationally. Okay, so whaling, I'm not clear on when the whaling station was established, but this was at Point San Pablo, where right around Point Malati area on that peninsula. So we have a harpoon, kind of a sad artifact if you think about it. This was the gun, right, that was used to hook and kill the sperm whales, right, and drag them in, many of which were actually used for dog food, which if you could think about our whales and how that resource was used in such a terrible way. We also have some teeth that are from a sperm whale. So yes, in fact, we do. There is a lovely oral history about the whaling station that's readily available online if you want to learn more about that. It's through the Regional Oral History Office at Berkeley, but you could read a firsthand account of a whaler. And thank you again for Tepco. In fact, yes, we do have a Tepco collection. I'm just walking over. Now, we don't have a huge collection of Tepco. Tepco was a pottery company. Just gonna get out of the glare here. Tepco was a pottery company that existed in El Cerrito. This is not a good light, but this is actually quite an interesting little collection of a few pieces of Tepco, because these pieces were owned by the artistic director of Tepco. And his daughter, who lived in Madeira, gave us quite a few pieces from his kind of test collection. So that is, that's quite special to have that connection. We are also quite lucky to have a gentleman named Lynn Mack on our board. And Lynn is the, he's the #1 collector of Tepco in the world. So he's quite wonderful, and he's great for loans. If we wanted to. And actually, I'm trying to get him to loan me one specific artifact right now too. So thank you for that reminder. I'd love to answer any other questions. I had a note and I didn't even look at it once through this whole experience, but actually that was about a half hour. So I'd love to answer any questions, or like I said, we are open Wednesday through Sunday from 1 to 4. We just kidding. Wednesday through Sunday from 1 to 4. We have it's $3 for senior citizens. Although we participate in the Discover and Go program, which if you have a library card, you could check out passes to the museum for as many people as you like. So we have several different ways to access the museum if the admission fee is some sort of a problem. Yes, Julie.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I wanted to show them something, but I also just want to point out that Melinda was gracious enough to do this tour for Ashby Village, which is bringing as much programming to its members as possible to continue their efforts to keep older people connected and stimulated and whatever. So if you want to know more about Ashby Village, you can go to their website, and they're always looking for volunteers and new members, and really appreciate Melinda. Okay, this is exactly where I wanted you to go, actually. Is this the ferry?
Yes, it is.
So I brought a very good friend of mine to the museum to see the Jewish exhibit. It was an exhibit about how the Jewish community in Contra Costa County and Richmond contributed to the history of the area. And so I brought a friend from Nevada with her grandchildren to see it. And she told her grandchildren this fantastic story about when she was about 9 years old. What year was that, Melinda, that this happened?
I want to say 54.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
It turned out that she and her family were on the last ferry from Richmond to San Rafael, and then the very next day the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge opened, and the ferry never ran again. So you're looking at a model of the ferry.
Right. And actually, I was 1 year off because I know for sure it was 1955 because that is when the bridge opened.
Okay.
But you make a great point, Julie, because, you know, Richmond is known for its shipyards for sure in World War II history, but there is so much else that is often overshadowed by the war. For example, one thing that I'm really interested in is social justice issues. The Black Panthers were very active here in Richmond. The Spanish-Mexican period. The first European landowner in our area in the 1830s was on the Anza expedition. He walked here from Sonora, Mexico when he was 4 years old with his family. And it's like, he was the and that is an untold story that, you know, all of these wonderful hidden histories. So what I'm trying to say is there is something here for everyone. What you can find, you know, Richmond has such a varied history that if you come here, I guarantee you will find one thing you are interested in.
Okay, we have another question, another chat question.
Great.
And also, I know that you wanted to say something about the Spanish flu because it's pretty relevant.
Yes.
To this time. So the chat question is from Sue, and she wants to know, what did the $2.50 childcare fee cover? One child, one day? Was there a discount for multiple kids?
Yes, it was a week. It was a week, and the additional student was 75 cents. And they got food. I'm a mom, right? I have two littles, 5 and 10. So this to me is like a bonkers thing. They were federally funded. So this was a program of the Maritime administration. And Barack Obama actually talked about he mentioned our childcare, federal childcare centers in his 2008 State of the Union, because he really wanted to start coming back to this idea of like giving help for childcare. $2.50. And you know, I've seen pay stubs for these periods, you know, a monthly income was about $46, right? So, you know, $2.50 is affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Julie. And I think Mary Jo may have had a question. She was raising her hand. Mary Jo. Did you have a question, dear? There you are.
When you were talking about the Richmond Ferry, I did write it in 1956, but you said, I can vouch for that because my oldest child was born in June of 1956, and I took her to introduce her to some people in San Rafael.
Okay.
When she was, I don't know how old, but she was maybe. So
okay.
I know.
Well, thank you so much. Interesting. And yeah, I believe you because childbirth is something you don't forget. So
I don't forget that.
No. Well, so I'm going to look into that. I really appreciate it. And that's another thing about my job, to be honest with you, is I learned so much from folks, and particularly from senior citizens. You know, Lynn is one of my most dedicated and wonderful volunteers and friends. Lynn Terrio, who joined us today. She is a retired school librarian. She helps me a lot, and she's been with me for the last 7 years plus as a volunteer, and we're always looking for volunteers, and not only, you know, in a lot of different ways. Right? And we have so many different opportunities that if you're looking for ways to become involved and, you know, really contribute, then the Richmond Museum is the place for you. So,
and Ashby Village, of course.
Of course, and I'm not trying to take from Ashley. They're both really important, but you know, they're also slightly different as well.
Right. So you wanted to tell us about the Spanish flu too.
I do. Okay, so quite briefly, I'd like to show you, and actually, let me see if I can I'm going to sit down and I am going to share my screen with you because the Richmond Museum has been working to detail our coverage, or excuse me, bring to the public coverage of the Spanish flu in Richmond. And I'm just bringing this up. But what we're doing is we are going back to our Richmond Daily Independent, and we are bringing, writing on our blog, right, sharing the actual news article from 1918, and then making connections between then and now. And one of the quite interesting things that we are seeing, in fact, is that there are so many similarities between the two epidemics. We are seeing and I'm sorry, I've just got it up here, but essential workers were being not targeted, but were falling victim to the epidemic. Okay, we start off here, and here you could see there is the image of the actual article from 1918, right? And then it will go through and give you some more information about the Spanish flu and how interesting it is. So this was how interesting it is, and actually learning a lot about all of the different people who died, their occupations, the same type of health precautions, just in different ways. And then there's another fantastic gentleman. Our health commissioner at the time was quite a character. Dr. Blake, right, was quite a character here. He was the individual who was working to contain the pandemic, the Spanish flu in Richmond. He went to UCSF, and so I learn a little bit, I talk a little bit about him as well, and some of the other interesting public health information that he put in ordinance, in place, including like moving the open latrines away from the markets. So there are similarities, but then there are also some quite interesting differences. But you know, if you'd like to know more about the Spanish flu, here's and Richmond's response to the Spanish flu, you know, you can join our look at our blog. You could also join our email list if you like. You can find our email list on our website as well. And this will give you monthly updates. We try to send one email a month. And that will give you information about our exhibits and the family free days. We have lectures as well. Sometimes, you know, pretty interesting and awesome people. And another thing, the most important thing about the coverage of the Spanish flu is just to show the community during this scary time that we've been through this before. Richmond has been through this, you know, been through an epidemic. We have emerged stronger from that epidemic. We will do so again. And you know, we can take comfort in these stories of the past that show the resiliency of our community. And so I just want to stop on that point, because you know, local history is important because it inspires people. And right, this is one of those times where we can find inspiration in how our community responded in the past. And I'm really proud to, you know, be able to bring those stories to the community at a time when, you know, there is so much uncertainty.
So Melinda, do you want to try, if you're finished, do you want to try to take us back to the Rose Garden just so we could see it, or is that impossible?
You know, I don't think it's going to work.
Okay.
Just because
Well,
now that
this will be a good reason. This will be a good reason for people to come to the museum because the Rose Garden is just stunning.
Right. Yeah, we have it on both sides of the building, so we have roses on both sides. Another thing that I'm doing, in addition to, in tandem with the Rose Garden, is planting a bunch of native plants, culturally significant plants that were used by the Ohlone people, so that we can have a more educational material in the garden as well, right? Because that would basically double our exhibit space. And plants are so amazing. And there's so much that we can learn about how the native people, our first peoples, lived through plants, and also have them growing here, in between all these beautiful rose plants.
Mary Jo has a question.
Please. Oh, I'm on mute. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, unmute yourself.
There you go.
Okay, there you go.
There we go. Is the museum open now?
No, it is not. No, we are abiding by the shelter in place. We are non-essential, so we are not open. I am here on my own, which is why I don't have a mask on. There's nobody else here with me in the building. And while we are not open, I do have a staff person coming in every day. 5 days a week, because for a lot of reasons, but we don't have staff here, more than one staff here at a time.
Okay. The hours of the day before, after the pandemic, we can.
Right.
And what was it again? Wednesday through what?
Wednesday through Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, so 5 days a week. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Right. And one other thing that is of interest to a lot of people is we also have a huge collection of research material. So if you are interested in researching a house in Richmond, or even anywhere in the East Bay, not anywhere in the East Bay, but anywhere in Contra Costa, West Contra Costa, we have a lot of resources for that. Old directories, yearbooks, phone books, newspaper clipping files, et cetera, which is where a lot of this Spanish Flute material comes from.
Anybody have any other questions? Raise your hand if you have a question, or use the chat box.
And I want to thank you all for allowing me to share the museum with you. And I also hope everybody stays well and healthy. And I'm really excited to further partner with Ashby Village, because I believe in that mission as well.
And thank you so much for taking us on this tour.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Stay well and enjoy your homeschooling.
Yeah, it's fun actually. I'm working on it. I'm getting more used to the idea of it. So thank you. Have a wonderful day. And you can always, if you have any more questions, or you want me to put you on our email list, feel free to email me. It's quite easy, melinda@richmondmuseum.org, or Julie can help you.
Okay, wait a minute. I think Kay has a question.
That's fine. Yes.
Kay, make sure you're unmuted.
Hi, sorry to jump in. I was trying to.
No, that's great.
I have a lot of questions. I'll be brief. I lived in Richmond 50 years ago and knew a lot of people that worked at the museum, but I don't have no idea where the museum is. I know I can look it up, but since you're there, could you just?
Of course, it's at 400 Nevin. It's right down the street from Kaiser Permanente. So we're just about 3 blocks from the Kaiser Hospital building. We are in the Nevin Park complex.
So you're not near the Arts Center and the Civic Center then?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the city's first library. So we're in the, what could be considered like the oldest part of Richmond, right? And so today that's called the Iron Triangle. And we are right smack dab in the middle, Nevin and 4th Street.
Thank you.
You're
And I have many interests. And also I could donate old carbon paper if you're interested.
Oh, thank you so
Let me
much.
know. I could donate Point Counterpoints, the newsletter from
Oh,
Point
yeah.
Richmond. And
Uh-huh.
it's 60. So, let me know if you're interested in any of that. I can send you my email. I was interested in, I just found out recently that Frank Lloyd Wright visited the Richmond shipyards, and I found out that Kaiser Industries built or owned the Waikiki Hilton Hotel. So I'm interested in any association of Frank Lloyd Wright with Kaiser Industries. I'm also interested in my grandfather, who did some work at the shipyard, but I don't know who his employer was. His employer might have been UC Berkeley. It might have been somebody else. Where could I go to research employees at the shipyard, and where could I go to find out more about Frank Lloyd Wright at Kaiser and the shipyards?
Okay, so that is I am not familiar with the Frank Lloyd Wright connection. That's super interesting, but I would love to put you in touch with one of my board members he literally like wrote the book on the shipyards. His name is Steve Guilford, and he's really wonderful. And in fact, he will talk your ear off about how Henry Kaiser built the Hawaiian Hilton. And that whole Waikiki village. So so I don't have a connection. I don't have an information for the Frank Lloyd Wright thing, but if you're interested in learning more about employees at the shipyard, now you would come here. We have the bar none collection for Kaiser shipyards. Even Kaiser Heritage Center comes to us for information. Now, that being said, there is no comprehensive list of shipyard employees. However, we have other sources of material, including employee shipyard newsletters, right? These weekly newsletters often included information about individual employees. And we have an index. Somebody sat in the museum and literally indexed these hundreds of copies of the fore and aft, which is what it's called. And so you could come here, of course you have to come here to access our index, but you could come here and look at that index, see, and at least get an idea of whether your relation is mentioned by name in those, and that would be our first line of evidence. And then we would move on to other information. But the second best thing to an employee shipyard list is this index to the employee newsletter. So thank you.
Thank you. It's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for your interest.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Melinda. This was really great, and I hope everybody will visit the museum when it's available to be visited. And yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah,
So-
and I'm glad we got over the first hiccup. I deeply apologize about that.
Oh, it's okay. Leave a little ink in the inkwell. People will have to come to the museum to see the lovely roses.
Yeah, they are, and they are pretty nice too. So thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon. Stay well. And I don't know when the museum will reopen, but we are going to have a big celebration safely, 6 feet apart, for all of us when it's safe to gather again.
Right.
So thank
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.